Jean Cruguet did not walk into the Triple Crown looking for respect. He walked in with Seattle Slew, the horse people had already laughed at, a body they called wrong, a price tag they dismissed, and a style that made rivals uncomfortable. In a sport where one bad break out of the gate can end a dream, he chose the hardest way to win. He let Seattle Slew show speed early, control the pace, and force everyone else to chase under pressure. That is how pride gets exposed. Not by a photo finish, but by a stretch drive where the others realize they are running for second. This story is not about a perfect image. It is about a pair that turned ridicule into a public lesson on the biggest stage in American horse racing. Before we begin, please subscribe and turn on notifications to help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Seattle Slew was built like a mistake, at least to people who judged horses the way they judge posters. The head looked too plain, the frame looked uneven, and the walk did not sell dreams in a sales ring. But on a racetrack, beauty is not what matters. What matters is how a horse carries speed and makes others abandon their plans. This one could break alertly, take the lead, and then ration energy with controlled early split times, the pace that decides who has air left in the final stretch. He wanted clean air, not excuses. When the field tried to crowd him, the horse stayed straight, kept his stride, and kept asking the others a simple question. Can you match this speed without losing your finish? Most could not. Their jockeys would glance, then panic, because chasing a true front runner is like chasing a moving finish line. The man on his back understood that, and he rode like a metronome, calm, firm, and always one decision ahead. Before he ever sat on a champion, he learned what it feels like to be unwanted. He was raised in a world where stability was borrowed, not owned, and where a kid could be moved along without anyone asking what he needed. That kind of childhood does not create a romantic hero. It creates a professional who stays calm when everything goes wrong. He found the racetrack young, not because it was glamorous, but because it offered work, routine, and a chance to control something. As a teenager, he started around horses, absorbing the basics the hard way, through early mornings and small jobs that taught him patience. Then life interrupted. Military service pulled him into a different kind of pressure, and when it ended, he returned with the same lesson. Keep your mind steady while the world tries to shake it. When he crossed the ocean to the United States in the mid-1960s, he arrived without a network and without guarantees. In American horse racing, mounts go to riders people already trust. He had to earn trust one ride at a time, taking opportunities other jockeys passed up, and proving he could judge pace, save ground, and still finish. That is not a highlight reel skill, it is survival. The public would later remember a famous salute and a famous series of wins. The backstretch remembered something else, a rider who could stay quiet, let a horse breathe, and never waste energy fighting the wrong battle. That temperament was the one thing that could match a horse that wanted to lead when the spotlight tightened. At the yearling sale, Seattle Slew was not the kind of colt that made people reach for their wallets with shaking hands. He did not look like a catalog cover, he looked like a problem. The talk around him was about what was wrong, not what could be right. In that room, reputation is currency, and he did not have it. Then the bid landed at $17,500. For a future star, that number sounded like a misunderstanding. Some buyers treated it like confirmation that their eyes were correct. If he were special, he would have cost more. That is how the sales ring can fool smart people. It teaches them to price the dream instead of measuring the athlete. But a racehorse does not win because of the way he poses. He wins because of what happens after the break, when the pace turns honest and the crowd noise stops mattering. The colt that looked awkward in the walking ring carried a kind of speed that did not ask permission. And once he learned his job, that cheap price tag stopped being funny. It became a warning. The first starts did not feel like normal wins. They felt like warnings. Once the gate opened, the horse did not hesitate. He broke cleanly, found his rhythm, and made the early pace look effortless. In horse racing, pace is the speed of the first part of a race, and it decides who has energy left late. This one carried that speed without wasting it. Rivals tried the usual answers. Some sent a challenger early to force a duel. Some tried to sit just off the leader, hoping the front runner would weaken, but each plan collapsed for the same reason. When the time came to turn for home, the horse still had another gear. He lengthened his stride, stayed focused, and widened the gap before the others could ask their riders for more. Those races built a dangerous reputation on the backstretch. Trainers started talking less about talent and more about tactics. How do you beat a horse who controls the fractions and still finishes? The answer kept changing, but the result did not. By the time the prep races arrived, the message was clear. Let him dictate, and you will spend the whole stretch chasing a moving target. By the time the Kentucky Derby arrived, Seattle Slew had become more than a contender. He had become a pace problem the entire field had to solve. The rider understood the trap. In the Derby, 20 horses load into the gate, and one poor break can erase months of preparation. You can be the best horse in the race and still get buried in traffic with nowhere to run. When the gates opened, nothing about the first seconds felt comfortable. Horses lunged, bumped, and fought for position. The horse did not get the clean, easy start everyone dreams about, and that is where most stories fall apart. The rider did not chase panic with panic. He let the horse find his stride, then guided him into daylight, close enough to the lead to keep the pace honest, but not reckless enough to waste his finish. In horse racing, a front runner is a horse who prefers to lead. That style can look simple, but it is unforgiving. If the pace is too fast early, the horse empties out late. If the pace is too slow, someone with a late kick will roll right past in the stretch. The rider managed the balance. He kept the rhythm steady, kept the horse straight, and when the moment came to turn for home, he asked for more. The response was immediate. The horse did not just hold on. He separated. Then came the Preakness Stakes, with less rest, more pressure, and rivals who had already learned the lesson. They tried to crowd him early, force him to fight, make him spend energy in the first half mile. This is where nerves win races as much as speed. The rider stayed patient. He let the horse breathe, settle, and claim the kind of position that controls the race without turning it into a brawl. When the stretch arrived, the others made their move. The horse answered again, and the message to the field was brutal. You can plan for his speed. You cannot plan for his will. The Belmont Stakes is where Triple Crown dreams usually go to die. It is longer, quieter, and less forgiving. Speed can look brilliant early, and then disappear when the long stretch asks one final question. Do you still have something left when everyone else is empty? For the rider, the challenge was not bravery, it was discipline. A horse who wants the lead will offer it the moment the gate opens. But in a race this long, taking the lead is not the same as owning it. Owning it means setting a pace that keeps the horse relaxed, keeps the stride smooth, and keeps the lungs full so the finish is still there when the real running starts. Down the backstretch, the horse moved like a machine built for pressure. The rider kept his hands quiet and his judgment loud. He did not let the race turn into a duel for pride. He let it become a test of efficiency. Other jockeys tried to inch closer, hoping the leader would get nervous and waste energy. The horse did not. He stayed straight, stayed focused, and kept rolling. Then they reached the turn for home, and the field made its move. The crowd expected the leader to finally weaken. Instead, the horse changed gears. The stride lengthened, the gap opened, and the pursuers started to look like they were running in a different race. That is what it means to shame rivals in horse racing. Not a lucky trip, not a perfect lane, a public moment where the best challengers are reduced to chasing shadows. And when the finish line arrived, the Triple Crown was no longer a debate, it was ownership. After the Triple Crown, the public wanted a simple ending, a champion horse, a fearless rider, a story that stays clean. American horse racing rarely works that way. Behind the trophies, there are owners, trainers, schedules, and money, all pulling in different directions. The rider had been the steady hand in chaos, but stability does not protect you from politics. He spoke honestly about training and conditioning because he believed the horse's future mattered more than anyone's pride. In a different sport, that might be called leadership. In a racing barn, it can be treated like disloyalty. Soon, the partnership that had looked unbreakable was no longer guaranteed. Decisions were made that he did not control, and the horse he had guided through the toughest weeks of the year moved on without him. That is the sharp edge of greatness. You can do everything right in public and still lose your place in private. The humiliation had shifted. Now it was aimed at the man. Seattle Slew proved that the sales ring can be wrong and the stopwatch can be right. In the biggest races, the horse did not win because he looked perfect. He won because he owned the pace, stayed brave in the stretch, and made rivals run his race instead of their own. The rider proves something just as rare. A hard childhood can create focus, not bitterness. And an outsider can keep his nerve when a whole nation is watching. Now, it is your turn. Which racing legend should we cover next? The kind of horse and rider whose story still lives in the grandstand. Tell us in the comments. Before you go, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you can catch the next episodes.